It's not unusual for someone to make fun of their mother-in-law or complain about their mother-in-law. My mother-in-law is pretty awesome. She's a pretty cool lady, and she's going to be my guest on this week's podcast episode. This is Task Time Energy, the purpose-filled productivity podcast. I'm your host, Scott Miller. Welcome to the show. Welcome, everyone. My guest today is my mother-in-law, Louise Greene. And I think it's going to be very interesting to hear what Louise has to say for a couple different reasons. One reason is because, and you said it was okay for me to tell everybody this, you are almost 79 years old and have maybe seen some things that a lot of people haven't seen. And also, as I was saying a minute ago, I really admire your ability to get chores done, get tasks done, not mess around, just get things done. So I think it'll be really interesting to hear what you have to say. So you grew up here in North Carolina, right?
Yes.
In Fayetteville?
Yes.
And then you got married, you moved around for a while. Your husband was in the Navy. And then you settled outside of Atlanta. And how long did you live outside of Atlanta?
42 years.
42 years. And then moved back here just last year to North Carolina.
Yes.
Raised two daughters, which is, I imagine, was a lot of work. If somebody said that they really have trouble getting tasks done, getting things done around the house, what advice would you give to somebody about that?
I make a list the night before of what I need to accomplish the next day. I've always been a morning person. I get up early. I try to get most things accomplished earlier in the day. And I have a lot of energy, or had a lot of energy, so I just got it done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you moved here to North Carolina last year, you got this whole house set up like really quickly.
Yes.
Like I remember just in a couple days, we went from everything was in pods outside the house to boom, everything's in here and set up.
Well, it'd taken me a year when I decided to move. I had to wait a year to get to move in the house. So I was tired of everything being unorganized. I like everything organized. So when I moved in, I would get up at 6 a.m. and work till midnight. Like it took me less than 3 days to unpack everything. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to be organized and a little bit normal.
To just wanting it done.
Yeah, I wanted it done. Yeah.
One of the things I noticed that you seem to do a great job of is before you moved, I know you spent a lot of time downsizing, getting rid of things.
Yes.
How much did that help just making the job simpler?
Oh, it made all the difference in the world. I started, when they had the shutdown, I couldn't leave the house. I started with the office because I hate paperwork. And I spent a month, went through everything in there, got rid of an entire file cabinet. And then I sold a lot of furniture consignment store, things I didn't need. And I donated 300 books. I got rid of a lot of stuff. And that would be one advice I would tell young people. You only need to buy half of what you buy. You don't need all that stuff. And I have gotten rid of so much stuff, and I do not miss a thing, especially Christmas decorations. When you start looking at how much stuff you have, you don't need all that stuff. And all that stuff you buy, if you invest that money when you get old, when you really need money, you'll be glad you did. Yeah.
What that makes me think of is talking to people, and they're talking about how much they have to do and how am I going to get all this done. And I think a better question sometimes is what's really important.
Yeah.
When you're moving here, it's not how do I move, and because being in a place for 40 years, over 40 years, you have so much stuff.
Yeah.
And it would be easy to ask, well, how do I move all this stuff? How do I pack all this stuff up and move it all, 2 states away? And instead, it seemed like you said, how much of this stuff do I really want?
What's important? I brought the old family things that are not replaceable. You can just go out and buy a new sofa, But the family, the pictures, the antiques, the things that I couldn't replace and that I would like children and grandchildren to have. That's Southern.
Yeah, that seems to be so helpful and something that people have a hard time with, even in like their plans during the day and getting their tasks done during the day. How do I get all this stuff done instead of starting by saying what really needs to be done? Yeah. Do you ever have a hard time with that, figuring out what needs to be done and just getting those few things done versus?
No. I just make a list and sort it, and then I just look at it and say, what's there might be a few, like a doctor's appointment, a few important things you have to do that day. And then, no, I don't have any trouble with that. No.
What are some of the big differences you see now compared to when you were younger in terms of things that might make it easier or harder for someone to get chores done, to get tasks done?
Well, all the women work. See, most of the women did not work. They worked, well, I started working at 14. I worked from 14 till 25. And then once I had children, most of the women did not work. Well, a lot of the men traveled all the time. They may leave Monday and come back Friday, which would be really hard. In the old days, mothers did a lot of volunteering at school and church and neighborhood and library and all the activities, and your children went to school every day in a clean ironed dress, not in a t-shirt and whatever. And you did not go out to eat. All meals you cooked from scratch. You cleaned the house. You did the yard work. You did everything. You didn't pay anybody to do anything you could do. And so the women did a lot of things to help the husbands that were gone all week, so they would have some free time when they got home on weekend, and they wouldn't have to work all weekend.
Yeah. That seems like something important to consider, because when you say, well, women didn't work, but when...
Oh, yes, we did. We worked real hard, but we didn't get paid. But I always figured I didn't work, so the money I saved was my contribution. Like, I shopped bargains for the children's clothes, Yeah. I did everything myself. Like, it costs a lot of money to have all your food delivered like they do now. Right. It costs a lot of money to order things online and going out to eat and, things, they spend a lot of money. We didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's anything else, just in terms of taking care of a whole house, taking care of kids, any other things that you've learned that have made that easier or that you've gotten better at over the years?
I would say I'm a little more relaxed about everything being perfect all the time now. It doesn't matter if your house is perfect all the time, but of course I wouldn't listen to them because it had to be. So you don't have to have everything perfect. You can do other things. Yeah. This sounds bad, I probably wouldn't volunteer as much.
Yeah.
I would have probably taken more time for myself, for my family, than doing all that. But I always felt like my children were involved in all these things. It was kind of my responsibility to take that responsibility on to get involved in it. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense that you would want to contribute like that. I'm curious what, my dear wife and sister-in-law are probably going to throw things at me for asking these questions, but what were Lauren and Jessica like growing up in terms of getting chores done, getting their homework done? Was that easy for them? Was that hard for them? Do you remember?
Jessica usually got everything done. She was organized and getting everything. Lauren would get it done, but she was more of a procrastinator. But they both did well in school, and they both, they were good kids. I didn't have any real big problems with them.
What do you think is important to teach kids about that? About whether it's just like getting their homework done, getting their chores done. Any advice you give to parents who say, what are the important things to teach my children to help them as they become adults, help them, manage their home, manage their work?
I probably did things for my children that I should have had them do to learn more responsibility. But luckily they've grown up to be responsible, and they they take care of their houses and all. But because I thought I'm not working, so they're going to school. It's their responsibility to go to school and get good grades. It's my responsibility to take care of the house. I mean, they did things like they'd be on the sofa and I'd go throw a pile of clothes on them and say, fold these or empty the dishwasher or, little things. But they could have had more responsibilities than they did. Yeah.
So you think having more responsibilities just teaches kids to handle those responsibilities and just get the things done?
Yes and no. I think there's some people that have a real good work ethic and are more driven to get things done. And I don't know that you can teach people that. I mean, there's so much in a person that is there and you're not going to change it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that would, they should have some responsibilities, but, everybody's different. And I mean, there's some people that would care less what their house looked like ever. And then there's some people that are neatniks and have to have everything perfect. And you're not going to change them.
So you talk about people who are just, organized, driven. They have that work ethic. They're just that way. But what about somebody who feels like they are a procrastinator and they really struggle with that and they want to get more done, but they just have a hard time doing it? I mean, is there anything, are you stuck with that, or is there anything that people can do?
You can make your little list and try to set, time limits like, okay, I've got this to do. I need to get this done by Saturday or whatever. You could do that to help you. But if you're that way, you're that way.
Yeah, that's it.
Pretty much. I mean, there may be some psychiatrist somewhere that could straighten them out, but I haven't seen a lot of people change a lot.
Yeah.
To whatever they are, they are. Yeah. But making lists helps a lot. Yeah.
You just shot my business as a coach
wow.
in the foot. Well, that's just a lot of what I do as a coach is help people. And I agree that it is really hard to change. It's been hard for me to change. When I was growing up in school, I was a procrastinator and stayed that way for a long time. And that's one of the reasons why I help people is because I've put a lot of effort myself into learning how to make lists, learning how to, just get things done. Let's not worry about it. Let's not complain about it. Let's just get it done. Have a lot of ideas, like for my business, growing my business. I have all these ideas, but I can't do them all. So how do I figure out which ones are the important ones, which ones I want to focus on? Just like, when you moved, figuring out which things are the ones I want to take with me and which can I let go of or get more of later. So that's just something that's one of the things that I do as a coach is help people. And I think that prioritization part is important. Not feeling, just because you feel like you have 10 things on a list or 20 things on a list, well, how many
it's
are you
overwhelming and you don't want to do anything. Yeah. So now you just make the list and you just start doing it, marking them off. It feels good to mark them off.
Yeah. That is something that people, it's not easy, but people I think can make that shift and start feeling good about that and start being able to do that. But it just takes a little bit of effort. And that's why I think it's useful to talk to people talk to people like you who've had maybe not as much trouble doing it and just have the get it done attitude. Any other advice that you would give people? Any other thoughts about just this general topic of whatever level, whether you want everything to be perfect in your house or you're more comfortable with things not being perfect, but we all have things we have to get done every day. Whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's with kids, what other advice do you have that you'd want to share with people?
Well, the more things you get done, the less you have to ever hire anybody to do it. When you get old, you don't want to be broke. Mm-hmm. You do not want to go to a state nursing home. You do not want to have to move in with your children. You want to be able to take care of yourself. So when you get old, it's nice to have money if you need it medically or your children need it medically, that you can do what you want to. You don't have to worry about inflation or if you have enough money to pay the bills this month. So you need to be, and you need to start, the younger you start, the better. Being organized, putting money in your IRA, saving money for the future. So I would say you think 80 years old is forever, you're never going to get there, but it gets there a lot faster than you think.
Yeah. So start making good habits early.
Yes, early. The earlier you do it, the better. And don't don't buy anything except a house on time. Save, if you can't buy a car, you don't buy a car. When you save up enough money, you buy a car. And so you don't, because you lose money paying all that interest. Yeah, pay cash and just prepare for the future. Because a lot of people now are living 90, 95. I mean, in my neighborhood, there are 6 people that are up close to 95 years old, living home alone. I think they said a baby born 2 years ago has a 50% chance of living to 100.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's
50%.
Yeah, 2 years ago, a baby has 50% chance of living to 100, and that's a long time. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time today, and I think I need to go up and hang a tool rack in the garage for you. So we're going to go do that. But thank you very much for doing this, and thank you for sharing your ideas and about all this. I think people will find this very useful.
Okay, thank you.
So what do you think? If you view yourself as a procrastinator, is that just the way you are? Is that how you're going to be for the rest of your life? Or is it possible to change? You probably know how I feel about that. And, there are some really inspiring examples that we can look at of people who've made significant changes in their lives. You have people who were very unhealthy, very out of shape, people eating an unhealthy diet and living an unhealthy lifestyle. And they decided to change. And, a year later, they're running a marathon. You have people who struggled with homelessness and substance abuse, and they decided to make a change. And then a couple of years later, they have a job and a home and a family, and they're living a life that they're really happy with. So it is possible to change. We do see examples of that. Is it easy? Not always, not necessarily. Probably one of the most important factors is wanting to change, really genuinely wanting to change. And also having whatever change we might want to make, having that be important enough that we're willing to take the steps that are necessary to make that change happen, whatever those steps are. So if you would like to become more satisfied with the way that you use your time, or maybe there's some other change that you want to make in your life, some other outcome that you want to achieve, I'd love to talk with you about that. You can visit my website, scottmillercoaching.com, or send me an email, scott@scottmillercoaching.com. I'd love to chat with you about that. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Take care.